The school principal's voice echoed through the packed auditorium as parents turned to stare. "I'm sorry, Mr. Rodriguez, but your daughter simply doesn't belong here anymore." 54-year-old Miguel Rodriguez sat alone in the back row, his weathered hands trembling slightly as whispers filled the room. The other parents had no idea that the quiet man they were judging had spent 3 tours in Afghanistan as a decorated Army Ranger, or that the small scar above his left eye came from shrapnel. That saved his entire unit. What happens next will leave you speechless. If stories like this touch your heart, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever witnessed a veteran being treated unfairly? Your support helps us share these powerful stories that need to be heard. Miguel Rodriguez had been sitting quietly through the entire school board meeting, waiting for his turn to speak. His 15-year-old daughter Sophia had been suspended for 3 weeks, and tonight was supposed to be his chance to get answers. He wore his only good shirt, the blue button-down that Sophia had picked out for him last Christmas. His work boots were clean but worn, and he kept his hands folded in his lap to stop them from shaking. The meeting had been going on for 2 hours. Parents complained about lunch prices, sports budgets, and new uniforms. Miguel just waited. When Principal Henderson finally called his name, the room fell silent. Principal Henderson stood behind the podium like she owned the world. "Mr. Rodriguez, your daughter Sophia has been causing serious problems at our school. She's been spreading lies about her family situation and making other students uncomfortable with her stories." Miguel stood up slowly, his knee aching from an old injury. "What stories are you talking about?" The principal shuffled through her papers with dramatic flair. "She's been telling classmates that her father is some kind of war hero. She claims you have medals and combat experience. Frankly, Mr. Rodriguez, we've looked into your background, and there's no evidence to support these claims." A woman in the front row turned around to get a better look at Miguel. She whispered something to her husband, and both of them started laughing quietly. Other parents began murmuring among themselves. Miguel felt his face get hot. "Sophia isn't lying about anything." Principal Henderson raised her voice so everyone could hear clearly. "Mr. Rodriguez, according to our records, you work as a janitor at the community center. Your daughter qualifies for free lunch. You drive a 15-year-old pickup truck. Does this sound like the background of a decorated soldier?" The murmuring got louder. Miguel heard someone say something about welfare families and their made-up stories. Another parent mentioned how these people always want special treatment. Board member Janet Mills leaned forward in her chair. "The problem is that Sophia's fabrications are affecting other students. She's been asking teachers for special consideration on assignments, claiming her father's military trauma makes it hard for her to concentrate at home." Miguel's hands clenched into fists. "My daughter has never lied about our situation." Principal Henderson's voice got sharper. "Mr. Rodriguez, we understand that some families create these fantasies to cope with their circumstances. But Sophia's behavior has become disruptive. She got into an argument with her history teacher last week when discussing military operations in Afghanistan. She claimed to have inside knowledge because of your supposed service." The room was buzzing. Now parents were turning in their seats to stare at Miguel. He could hear bits of conversation. Pathetic, making things up. "These people will say anything." Board member Tom Walsh spoke up from his seat. "We've had to deal with this kind of situation before. Children from struggling families sometimes invent stories to feel important. It's understandable, but we can't allow it to continue disrupting the educational environment." Miguel stood there in silence for a moment, looking at all the faces staring at him. These people lived in big houses with perfect lawns. They drove expensive cars and wore clothes that cost more than Miguel made in a month. They had no idea what real struggle looked like. Principal Henderson continued her performance. "Furthermore, Sophia has been caught showing other students what she claims are your military medals. When pressed for details, She couldn't provide any official documentation or proof of your service record. Man near the back called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. Maybe they bought those medals at a pawn shop. The laughter that followed felt like a punch to Miguel's stomach. His face burned with shame, but not for the reasons these people thought. He was ashamed that his daughter had to defend him in front of her classmates. He was ashamed that his service record was locked away in a file cabinet at home, because talking about those years was too painful. Board member Mills adjusted her glasses and looked directly at Miguel. Mr. Rodriguez, we're not trying to embarrass you or your family. But Sophia's behavior has escalated to the point where she's been getting into physical confrontations with students who question her stories. Physical confrontations? Miguel's voice was barely above a whisper. Principal Henderson nodded dramatically. Last Tuesday, she pushed another student who suggested that janitors don't become war heroes. She's been suspended for 3 weeks, and frankly, we're considering a permanent transfer to the alternative school. The room fell completely quiet. Everyone was staring at Miguel, waiting to see what the poor janitor would do next. Some looked amused. Others looked disgusted. A few seemed to feel sorry for him, which somehow felt worse than the mockery that Miguel thought about Sophia sitting at home right now, probably doing homework at their small kitchen table. She always did her homework, even when suspended. She never complained about their old apartment or the fact that her clothes came from thrift stores. She was proud of him, even though he cleaned toilets and emptied trash cans for a living. He thought about the Purple Heart sitting in his sock drawer, wrapped in tissue paper. The bronze star with V device that he'd earned pulling 3 wounded soldiers out of a burning Humvee. The combat infantry badge that meant he'd faced enemy fire and lived to tell about it. He kept them hidden because looking at them brought back memories that still woke him up screaming some nights. Principal Henderson was still talking. We need families to be honest with us. Mr. Rodriguez, we can't help children who are living in fantasy worlds created by their parents. Miguel looked around the room one more time. These people had made up their minds about him the moment they saw his work clothes and old truck. They saw a poor Hispanic man and decided he couldn't possibly be anything more than what he appeared to be. He thought about his old squad leader, Sergeant First Class Johnson, who used to say that some battles aren't worth fighting. But Johnson also said that when someone attacks your family, you fight back with everything you have. Miguel reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. It was old and cracked, held together with duct tape. He opened it carefully and took out a small faded photograph. The room watched in silence as he walked toward the front. His boots squeaked on the polished floor. When he reached the podium, he placed the photograph on top of Principal Henderson's papers. This is my daughter when she was 7 years old, Miguel said quietly. She's sitting on my lap at the Veterans Day parade. I'm wearing my dress uniform with all the medals she talks about. Principal Henderson looked down at the photograph. Her confident expression started to fade. Miguel continued in the same quiet voice. Behind us in the picture, you can see the banner for the 75th Ranger Regiment. That's the unit one served with for 12 years. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 1 in Iraq. The murmuring in the room had stopped completely. Board member Walsh leaned forward to get a better look at the photograph. Miguel reached back into his wallet and pulled out a small, laminated card. This is my DD-214. It shows my discharge status and service record. Combat infantry badge, bronze star with V device for valor, Purple Heart with oak leaf cluster. He set the card next to the photograph. Principal Henderson picked it up with shaking hands. Miguel looked out at the room, full of parents who had been laughing at him just minutes before. My daughter tells people about my service because she's proud of me. Not because I taught her to lie, but because she knows that serving your country is something to be proud of, even if you end up cleaning toilets afterward. His voice got a little stronger. She got into a fight defending me because some kid said, janitors can't be heroes. My daughter knows better. She knows that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes they mop floors to pay the rent. Board member Mills cleared her throat awkwardly. Mr. Rodriguez, we had no idea. Miguel held up his hand to stop her. You had no idea because you didn't bother to find out. You saw a poor man in work clothes and decided he must be lying. You were so quick to judge my family that you never once considered asking for proof before humiliating us in public. Principal Henderson was staring at the documents in her hands. Her face had gone completely pale. Miguel picked up his photograph and DD-214, putting them back in his wallet carefully. My daughter will not be transferring to any alternative school. She'll be coming back to finish her education here, and should be treated with the respect she deserves. He turned to face the room full of parents. And if anyone has a problem with my daughter being proud of her father's service, they can take it up with me directly. The silence in the room was deafening. Miguel walked back to his seat, his boots still squeaking on the floor. He sat down and folded his hands in his lap, just like before, but this time, when people looked at him, they saw something different. They saw a man who had earned the right to be proud. They saw a father who would fight for his daughter. And they saw a reminder that heroes don't always look the way you expect them to. 3 weeks later, Sofia Rodriguez returned to school. She never had to defend her father's honor again.